So obviously, I've been dealing with narcissists all of my life, but it's a really strange type of narcissism when these narcissists. Sorry, I'm getting notifications here, but when these narcissists cross over into the threshold of pure evil, and there's a big difference here, and it's an important one to bring up, where my life has been at stake, my livelihood, my love life. It's crossing the line between someone who's merely just being selfish or self absorbed or insecure and someone who has willingly taken themselves into the darker dimensions of how they're willing to treat you. So many people have these narcissistic traits. In fact, to some degree, I believe all of us do, because no one on earth is perfect. But we're wired with the capacity for self interest, for ego, for desire, administered by the independence that we all seek to have. But it's crossing that line between that and the tendencies of being completely problematic for other people, creating a very tricky trouble in other people's lives, where I've been left in my situation in that way, where these people have been completely going unchecked. There's no oversight. So they're performing in a way that to them feels like a necessary evil. This enhances them to become very dangerous. However they want to work it out, it's a deliberate orientation toward harming another individual. And that's the threshold. That's the line in the sand where I've drawn many times, saying this far and no further. So the narcissist has crossed over that line consciously and even unconsciously into that self-centeredness, into that, what I'd say in my case is conscious malevolence, where they know what they're doing, they know the evil they want to do, and they don't care how you feel, they're doing it anyway. It no longer supplies you as if you're a human being or a human part inside of that way to ignore your needs completely, and instead it begins taking satisfaction in the disregard that they're placing inside of your life. They no longer just inflate their own importance. They now view you as someone that they can diminish in front of others in an inferior fashion to affirm their own superiority over you. That shift is subtle at first, and maybe you don't even see it. And as for me, I didn't see it. Psychologically, it represents a transformation of that identity. That person is no longer driven by insecurity or vanity. They become animated into something completely darker, completely parasitic, that feeds off of the attention for themselves, and not only that, but the suffering that they can create over another person's life. And that is evil. That is pure evil. It's not simply the absence of good, but the active inversion of it. And these narcissists who have submitted themselves to evil are not simply blind to your pain. They don't carry any care or any goodness when it comes to how they're willing to treat you, or how they're willing to subjugate you to their abuses. And in fact, they so much work inside of that darkness that they come to acquire it. They come to acquire all of your blindness that they can create over you, to then acquire your goodness so that they can require it of others in a way to treat you. So it's like it's like having their own being taught as far as how they're supposed to treat you, how they're supposed to move with disregard over your character. without that destruction of your life, of your identity, of your love life, they start to wither. And that's where many victims inside of this type of narcissistic abuse describe how they're just being drained, hollowed out, consumed. Because these spirits are of the very demonic core, enhancing their ability to get inside of your life in order to leave you drained, not only on the psychological level, but on the biological level as well. Meaning that these people can poison you, these people can perform many atrocities inside of your life where it's unwittingly something happening to you inside of that state of the art of warfare. And there they are, crossing beyond the threshold now that you've drawn that line in the sand. And in the same way that you would imagine a predatorial person would. They live by extracting your life, energy, force, your hopes, your love life, your finances, your confidence. They want to undermine you in any way possible, because it's not just a psychological quirk. It's the very physiological and moral realization that when a person makes these decisions consciously or unconsciously, it embraces those lies over the truth, manipulation over being truthful and honest. It's taking domination over your own cooperation, over your own cooperating with them. You don't cooperate with them, then all of a sudden you're the problem. You're deliberate. All of a sudden you're delusional. They're aligning themselves with the cultures across the world that have recognized this evil. You can see it all across religious texts. You can see it in these mythological stories and other beings of heroes' stories. You can see it in the political arrangement that's going on out in the world today. It's completely narcissism to the archetype of narcissism, where they are performing to literally manifest and be your arch enemy. So these arch enemies are evil, always the same, using the same ways as always. It's to dismiss you, diminish you, work up for a complete dismissal, being that type of malignant narcissist where that archetype is to operate on the full spectrum of these evils and all levels of them. It becomes their living embodiment of how they're willing to treat you and how they're willing to allow others to be able to treat you. And if they aren't, and if like their kids or their communities or their friends and family members and anyone else that they can manipulate, it's to take away from your ability to an ordinary life, your originality, your organic ability of living, your organic nature of how you're able to carry yourself out in job performance and things like that. So at first, it seems like that a person on these levels might even come to you as being charming. These tactics are what I call love bombing tactics, so that they can gain your energy, they can gain your trust, they can gain your support of them, so that all of a sudden they can get you into a situation to just flip the script just like that. 24 hours after, a month or two going by where no signs of red flags popping up all over the place, all of a sudden you're going to be alarmed, and you're going to be alarmed really heavily, because they appeal to take over your desires, your ideals, your insecurities, your joys, your love, your finances, and they begin to test the boundaries of all of those areas of your life to exert their control over you. If you push back, that's when they escalate. When you push back again, that's where their game gets amplified even that much more. But if you comply with their demands, that's where they just exploit you further. That's where they'll poison you further. That's where they'll psychologically torment you further. And so it becomes difficult to see beyond the lines that they've crossed, because at this point, you're self doubting yourself because you're being gaslighted all over the board. And it becomes difficult because what you're realizing is happening, you're becoming so entangled in to their love bombing. You don't understand why they're willing to work in this way. But that's why the notion of that threshold is to be seen as it's a crucial point to realize and recognize where someone is so self-absorbed, where their ego is manifest inside of their lives, to be able to do and perform in this fashion over another person's life. You have to be yourself discerning what levels of that self-absorption has evolved into their psychology and into their ability to create that destruction in your life. You don't see these things when you're poisoned up, and especially if you're poisoned up from such a young age, you just don't see these things. It becomes a person that's so profoundly dangerous inside of your life, and a group of people that become so profoundly dangerous that your emotional side, your spirituality, your love life, your financial life, your home life, every avenue of your life is being perverted by the ways that they're willing to step over those boundaries and cross them in countless ways to create chaos and to create and manipulate other agents inside of that warfare and state of the art of proxy warfare, to create those agents who are going to literally dismantle your life. So while you could be seeking to build, they're seeking to completely tear you down, and it's not love. There's no availability of them to be loving, because they're too consumed into what they're able to do to take away your life's worth. And then the evil becomes this grand gesture, so to speak, of like a whole sweeping act of like sweeping everything that they're doing away from anybody else, to be able to see them for who they are, while they're also making decisions, all of these tiny to large betrayals, to institute for lie upon lie that creates that cruelty and just corrodes your conscious levels of what's going on. They'll get you into self-doubting yourself, and then when they get you into self-doubting yourself, you become so thoroughly fatigued just through the psychological warfare alone. But then when there's added agents of the biological warfare as well, you will literally not know what's going on. You won't even be able to piece any of it together, as if you're lifting up a body of yourself times like 50, times like 30, or more, depending on how much biological agents that they get inside of your life and how harshly you're being pressed is going to determine how much of that abuse is going to take over your own conscious levels of being able to decipher how much more you can handle. And so you'll find yourself like having to expand that threshold of pain, and then once it reaches that expansion, you're like, you can't expand any further, but they yet expand that even that much more, you see. So it was much like for myself, where I was placed into homelessness with the intention of placing me into homelessness to create a problem that was just going to take my feet and walk me straight off the cliff. As far as they're concerned, they had no concern for my well-being, no concern for my health, no concern for me whatsoever, as they never did. I grew up with these people, and they would manipulate others into thinking that they were just goody two-shoes, while they would also be working in the dark of my life and in the backgrounds to actually perform on these levels. So when I was like legit in one of the worst situations, and I've been in a lot of really worst situations, but at that time it was the very worst situation I had dealt with, I would be getting up purposefully at 3:30, 4:30, at the latest 5:30 or 6:30 every morning so that I could get up and fight until I just couldn't fight anymore. I would be fighting for my finances, I'd be fighting for my health, I'd be fighting for my mental capacity, I'd be fighting to write, I'd be fighting to get my information that of a covert warfare and of this type of covert warfare to every single news station, every single journalist, every single where that I could find. And again, just like now, same scenario. Unable to get any answers, unable to get anyone to support me, unable to get anyone to suggest that any of this is real when it very much is. So, at first, I was literally getting up because not only did I have to, but I was getting up in the heaviest, the very heaviest body that I think anyone could have ever have embodied besides me. And maybe I'm wrong. I just have never met anybody dealing with as much of the abuse that I have dealt with, the targeting, the malignant narcissists through covert operations of them inserting proxy warfare to proxy my reality, to make a whole fake reality for me, to then be able to earn my trusts where I was already poisoned up and easy to manipulate, to as well bring me water, coffee, whatever it would need to be in order to have the poisoning in there, much like a rat poisoning. If you asked me, it was a cold and calculated, very malevolent arsenic poisoning of me for a very, very long time, even up until that point. So when I was getting up and calling people, going, I just don't feel right. Something's not right. I need to get out of here. Can you please help me? I don't know what's going on. My tongue's twisted. My tongue's tied. You see, and it's hard to articulate because not only are you poisoned, but it's hard to articulate because you literally don't know what's going on. I had to discover this through patterns and the patterns of abuse on repeat. So I definitely had to learn these things, and after learning these things, I know for myself far well what's been happening to me. But the moral of the story here is that you're literally waking up, getting out of bed as if you are literally carrying 50, 60, 70 of you just to get up, to carry yourself, to carry your weight. Feels literally like you are just anchored, and you're carrying the weight of the world at your feet, on your shoulders, on your back, everywhere, because of all of the poisoning that they had gotten inside of my body to make my body suffocating to the cellular level where I couldn't see straight, I couldn't think straight, I couldn't walk. At times, I would literally be flopped to the ground, like literally, not figuratively, literally. After these poisons and after this person, especially the proxy made person, would be around in my life, I would literally be down, tied to the ground, feeling. Just trying to get up from having multiple chains strapped to you to that ground, frozen to that ground. And you have to get up. You have to get up. You just think to yourself, I have to get out of this. I have to get up. No matter how heavy this is. You stay down, you're down for good. And that's exactly what they want.